Good evening. This is Tuesday, May 28th, and it is 6 o'clock p.m., and we are going to hold a Community and Economic Development Committee hearing, or meeting. My name is Jeff Schilling. I'm the chair. I have Mrs. Snee to my right and Mr. Pierce to my left. And we have a couple of things to look at tonight. We actually got quite a few. The first is a recommendation that the council authorize applications to be filed with the Ohio Department of Development, ODOD, for program year PY 2024 Community Development Block Grants, CDBG. There's going to be a lot of initials tonight. I want to warn you ahead of time. Community Development Allocation Program and Neighborhood Revitalization Program. That is also abbreviated NRP funds. And Mr. Titterington, who's going to give us some help tonight?
I'd ask Development Director Davis and Nikki Reese to come up.
Mr. Davis, welcome. Good to see you again.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Thank you.
Okay.
What I wanted to do, because this is a very involved grant, I kind of want to break it down into several different sections. One, to talk about kind of the background. Two, to talk about the grant requirements. And then three, to talk about the allocation grant and then the neighborhood revitalization grant. So the background, how we got here. In 2017, we did the Downtown Riverfront Strategic Development Study, where we talked about connectivity points. And one of the objectives was to strengthen connections to an active river and trail. And with the Lowhead Dam project, it gave us an opportunity to really focus in and achieve this objective. As you know, we'll have a shelf life on the south side of the river. We have a bike trail that is on the north side of the river. So this opportunity gives us a chance to put a bike trail on the south side that will run from Treasure Island all the way over to the east side of the railroad bridge near Crawford Street. This opportunity allows us to then connect to that trail. We would run what we're calling a Crawford Street pedestrian pathway along Crawford Street from East Water Street all the way down to Hurlinger Park. And then with that, we have park improvements as well. So that's kind of the opportunity that presented itself with this grant opportunity. Now, the grant requirements, you talked about CDBG, which is Community Development Block Grants. This is a requirement that this has to be done in an LMI service area. LMI is another acronym. As you were talking about, there's a lot of them with these grants. It's a low to moderate income areas. So Hurlinger Park area and Crawford Street does qualify, so these grants can be spent in that area. But to utilize these grants, you have to have 3 eligible activities identified in the grant. So we actually have more than 3, but 3 is the minimum. With this project, we would achieve stormwater improvements, sidewalk improvements, street improvements, recreational improvements, as well as curbs and gutters. So we do meet the objectives for that. I do want to point out that this is the first time the city has applied for this type of grant as well. So this type of grant consists of basically 2 portions. One, every other year, we get what we call allocation from the state. So the city receives $150,000. And then in your allocation year, then you are eligible to apply for these grants such as neighborhood revitalization. The state strongly encourages allocation funds to be used during these grant opportunities. So to make our application stronger, what we're proposing is to use $130,000 of the $150,000 application for the Crawford Street pedestrian improvements. The pedestrian improvements, essentially what they will do is create on the west side of the street a 10-foot shared bike trail all the way from Water Street down to Hurlinger Park. We are not asking or requesting any additional right-of-way. All the work, I think you have maps in your packet, shows that all the work that is being done will be within the current right-of-way. It will provide a 10-foot pathway. We have a 5-foot area of buffer between that and the street. And then you'll have your 20-foot for drive lanes. And then you'll have your off-street parking. And then your typical 5-foot section, and then the sidewalk. The reason we went to the west side of the street was because of they have fewer utilities making it more more affordable to do as opposed to the other side of the street. And one thing we were very aware of, we wanted to be very cognizant of, was on-street parking. It is heavily utilized in the area, and we felt that we didn't want to take away from the parking. We wanted to have the shared path separate from the road for that reason. With the funding sources for the projects, we're eligible to ask for up to $750,000 of the Neighborhood Revitalization Grant. This, we would find out, we would submit an application if council allows. We would find out in fall if we are accepted for this funds. With these funds, we identified the project, all the improvements that we talked about, the 10-foot shared bike trail, the 5-foot bump outs at the intersections. We expect this to cost about $1.7 million. The funds that we broke down talk about street improvements. We have funding sources labeled in your packet. CDBG NRP would be $650,000 of the $750,000 would be utilized for that. We also have $130,000 of the allocation that I just talked about. We would take $250,000 from the EDRLF. And so the loan fund is actually a fund that was established by the state of Ohio. Fortunately, we have a very healthy balance. Unfortunately for us, the state considers any funds with $250,000 or more in the account as stagnant, as we're not using the money. So we had a big payoff last year, which led us to a high amount. So utilizing these funds from the revolving loan fund, it doesn't hurt our end-of-the-day balance, as we have a very healthy balance now. We also have stormwater funds and water funds, and then some City of Troy general funds for $400,000. Now, we will continue. We have actually submitted other grant opportunities. A one-time strategic fund. We have submitted an application to Senator Huffman's office, and then Mike Carey's office as well. So we're hoping to get funds to offset the City of Troy funds. At least that is our hope anyway. So that part of the project is all tied into the pedestrian pathway. The other portion of the project, the second portion, is the Hurlinger Park improvements. We actually took this to the park board earlier today. These improvements include new playground equipment, a 9-hole disc golf course, installation of pickleball courts, new lighting, and improved parking, as well as fencing in the area. So one of the requirements for the grants is that we have to hold 2 public hearings before you can apply for these grant funds. What we did is we held 2 public hearings, but also 4 informational meetings. So we invited everybody in the project area to meetings. We held 4 meetings. All of these were held at Forest School, so it's conveniently located in the area. And I think we have several residents that are in attendance, I saw, that were gracious enough to attend our meetings and provide us with a lot of feedback. The feedback we received, we did it through the in-person informal meetings, and then we did it through a survey as well. We received a lot of feedback, and we tried to incorporate the desires and wishes of those residents into our grant application. We talked about improvements to Hurlinger Park. That came from the citizen input that we received at those meetings. Pickleball courts was a very popular one, as well as the golf. They talked about having lighting. Right now the park, I think they feel, is underutilized, but the lighting is not the best out there, so as it gets darker areas, it's not as attractive. New lighting, new parking areas, it certainly makes it more inviting. So we were very careful to take their input and implement it in the grant application. And with that, with the projects we had, we are asking that you allow us to apply for this grant. Obviously, if we do not get this grant, we do have a backup plan where our allocation money would go towards improvements to the Lincoln Community Center, but also pay for our fair housing and some general administration dollars. So there's a plan A and a plan B with these funds. But we are asking that council authorize, or that the committee make a positive recommendation to City Council to authorize the application for the NRP funds, as well as using our allocation money in these funds. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay.
It's a lot of information, I know.
It is, absolutely. Thank you for your presentation. Mrs. Sneer, Mr. Pierce, do you have any questions you'd like to ask?
Absolutely.
Who wants to go first?
You go right ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Pierce.
All right. Just to clarify, on-street parking will not be affected. Is that what I heard you say?
That is correct.
Okay. And then in that park, we have some beautiful mature trees. Would those have to come down in order for the pickleball courts to be installed?
In the parks?
Yes.
No, our goal is to not take down any trees. Our goal is to kind of work around what we have. We specifically wanted to keep the mature trees as they will actually be a provided benefit to the Frisbee golf course, as it makes it a little more challenging to go around those trees.
Okay, and then something else, we have a residential area that's pretty close to that on one side of the park. As far as lighting goes, is there a way to make sure that we don't have that lighting point towards that residential area?
Yeah, it'll actually be newer technology lighting. So as our old lighting kind of comes down and shields out, this will be more focused in the area. Our goal is to eliminate any nuisance to those area residents as well.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. That's the questions I had.
Just following on the lighting question, does it stay on, the lighting, all the nighttime hours? I mean, is that lighting time?
I believe it does.
Okay. And then when you talk about the improved parking at Hurlinger Park, is that where the parking currently exists, but you would improve the surface of it, or would there be additional
That is
parking?
correct. So essentially right now it's just a gravel area. We would actually pave that, probably lay out parking stalls to maximize the parking. But then kind of on the south side, you have that gravel turnaround. We would also pave that as well for additional parking spaces on that side.
Okay. And the pavilions that are there with the picnic tables, they would remain also?
That's correct.
Okay. I think that's
Anything else?
all I had.
I had an opportunity to visit the park this morning. Beautiful place. It needs some TLC. Grass wasn't mowed. There was obviously the parking areas were full of water. We talk about replacing the playground equipment. I think that's an absolute necessity. The playground equipment is old. It's a little moldy. There are numerous scratches on the playground equipment, vandalism types of scratches, not kids playing. I know the kids have played on that equipment very frequently because you can tell the use, and so I think we need new playground equipment. Obviously, there's 2 new shelters there, which is an improvement. The basketball court, which has not been mentioned, I looked at that, and while it is serviceable, there are some fairly large splits in the asphalt. It looked to me, and I know that's probably not the case, but it looks to me like the winter residue is still on the basketball court. And I know our city staff is very busy, but the grass needs mowed, and I think that it'd be nice to get the basketball court cleaned up. There were nets. There were actually nets around the rim. That's always a good sign of maintenance. And from that standpoint, like I say, but it's a very nice park. It's very well shaded. So and there is a lot of open space. Okay, so I mean, it's from that standpoint, it's very nice. As we get in, so I would recommend anything to improve. If we've got $160,000 that we want to commit towards improvements in the park, I think we can utilize that. A couple of comments on the pickleball courts. I don't play because of physical limitations, but many of my friends do, and they seem to all be in leagues. And so my question was, have we talked to anybody out at the Y, any of the pickleball players, men or women, out at the Y, or that are currently using the main park, because I know we have pickleball courts there, as to their preferences as to how many, typically a league wants to get their players in and out, schedule them, and have enough courts to do all that type of stuff. And most of pickleball play is my understanding, is league play. So that if we establish pickleball courts out at Hurlinger Park, then the question is are the players going to be that have leagues? What's the possibility of setting up more pickleball players in leagues, and are we going to have enough courts to accommodate all that? Has anybody talked to the pickleball players in the city of Troy at all?
So we did reach out to Paul Hinkleman. I had a conversation with him.
And he is what?
He is a part of the Miami County Pickleball Association group.
Okay.
currently utilizes Duke Park. We asked for his feedback. He gave us a lot of feedback. Most of it was positive. He says he always encourages new pickleball courts to kind of grow the sport. He did have maybe several reservations. One would be how it's going to be utilized, who would be using them, those type of things. I informed him it would be open to the park, open to the residents who wanted to utilize them. It's not reserved for leagues, but it's for everyone to enjoy. So they would have to, if they wanted to utilize those parks, they would have to either work with the Parks Department. He did tell me he is having a meeting with the Parks Department this summer as a kind of a discussion with Jeremy Drake and the Park Board President, Jordan Emmerich, to have further discussions about pickleball and use in the city of Troy.
Mr. Chair, just
Yes.
to add to that, having been at several of meetings, one comment that you made may not be entirely accurate in that there is a significant amount of league play out there. There's some challenges between the league play and the open play, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
There is quite a bit of demand for open play.
Okay.
The park board is aware of the issue. They are setting rules and regulations and working with the association who wants to be able to kind of control the courts at least at certain periods of time so that they can promote the league play, but then also provide the open play as well. So in general, the pickleball community, if you will, is always looking for more courts, which is why we felt that that would be a good location outside of the Duke Park concentrated area to add some additional courts, and then allow the park board to establish, what kind of play occurs on all of the courts.
Right. I know at one time we used to be able to reserve tennis courts at the main park.
There is some talk about doing that using the association, at least for part of the time,
Okay.
leaving some of the time for open play for families. Because and where I heard, although I don't play either, is that it is becoming more and more popular just for the open play in addition to the league play, and so that's where that conflict is in the process of being resolved with through the park board and through the conversations that Tim mentioned with the association and with the park superintendent.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Okay. I also had an opportunity to travel along Crawford Street. It's a very wide street, not very busy. Parking on both sides. There are some locations, especially south on Crawford, where there is no curb. I don't think the curb lawns are 5 feet wide. I think they're closer to 3, which is, I know in my own case, my curb lawn is, again, in that 42-inch range, not 5 feet as you're talking about. So, I'm quite, I know things change as far as requirements. My house was built 17 years ago. So I don't know if 5 feet is now the new normal. I don't know. But again, when we're talking about space and people parking and the width of the street, Crawford Street measures 42 feet wide. They currently have 5-foot sidewalks on each side. I noticed some of the houses have brand new sidewalks. Evidently, they may have been part of our sidewalk program, or this may have just been an initiative by the homeowners. But there are a few of the homes that have brand new sidewalks, and I know the homeowner would be concerned if we start tearing up their brand new sidewalk. Some caution there. As a bike rider, I've ridden almost all over Miami County. I've been to the south down using the bike trail to head to Tip City and beyond. Coming back, coming into Troy, we never get around Hurlinger Park. We come in on, is it Bower Park?
Boyer Park.
Boyer Park, okay, Boyer Park area, and we enter the east side of Troy, through that bike trail. The streets are you know, very few cars. It's you know, safe to pedal about anywhere you want on the east side of town. You have to cross. Be careful when you're crossing East Franklin, Union Street, some of those. But you know, again, bicycles are used to that. If I want to go downtown, I go under the Race Underpass, and a couple of blocks, I go down the alley between the Presbyterian Church and the old GTE building, and I'm right there coming out right at Herons. You know, I don't know the east side whether, you know, it makes a difference to the bicyclists on the east side, whether that, you know, how they get to the Hobart Cabinet building area, because that's where the end point really is for this trail. In the MKS case study, they talked about outlining a bike path with you know, by paint, share the road types of concept, and that, I think they gave estimates of $15,000, $17,000, something like that, to do that. So my questions as I look at this thing as a bicycle rider, why are we building a highway when we can just mark what's already there? I know that Crawford Street needs some street repairs. I'm not doubting that, and I think we need to spend some money to do that, especially to reestablish the curbs where they're missing, and obviously reconstruct the curb lawns and some things like that. Like say again, we have the sidewalk improvement program. It's been through that area and made judgments on the existing sidewalk. So, you know, I'm not real sure we're in a position to say, well, we need to replace all that type of stuff. You know, so again, there's some questions I have. When we get into the financing, one other question I had for you, though, what is the difference between a public hearing and a public information meeting? In the information that you sent us, you said that you held 6 public information meetings. Were those advertised in the local paper?
So the 2 public hearings are required to be advertised in the local paper.
And were they advertised in the local paper, or were they part of the 6 public hearings that we held?
They were advertised in the paper.
They were advertised in the paper. So you misspoke when you told us we had 6 public information meetings. Is that correct?
Well, no. So public hearings are required to be advertised in the paper, and then public informational meetings are just meetings that are open to the public that we invited, but they are not required to be advertised in the paper. So the grant application requires 2 to be advertised in the paper, which we held both of those. It'll be also supplemented 4, if you will, public informational meetings where we invited the neighboring residents to attend.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, the 2 public hearings were actually...
Okay, excuse me, Mr. Tittering, let me read this right out. Okay. It says that the CBG program requires 2 public hearings prior to submitting the application. This is on the information you sent us. Troy Development Department staff hosted 6, parentheses, 6, the numeral 6, public information meetings this year, with 4 of these meetings being held at Forest Elementary. And there was nothing about public hearings in the information that you gave us. That's my question.
Oh, so
okay, so I'm reading the information you gave us, and there's nothing in there about any public hearings. I'm learning about that today, right now.
Yeah, so public hearings, again, are required to be advertised, which we did. And then those public hearings are required to go over the grant requirements. It's required by the state of Ohio for the applications. And then our, if you want to call them informational meetings or public informational meetings, those were where the residents, the nearby residents were given notice to attend, but it is open to the public. We have people outside the area, the project area, to attend those meetings as well.
Okay.
So of those 6, 2 of those were public hearings, 4 were informational meetings, if that makes it.
So the information needed to be corrected then. And again, I appreciate the opportunity that the city has done in trying to reach out to the residents around the Herlinger Park area. I think that's 4 meetings is tremendous. Now let's get on to finances. Okay. The information that we were given, we have $150,000 in CDBG community development funds, of which $30,000 or $20,000 were siphoned off for administrative expenses, and we had a small project amounting to $3,000. Is that correct? some sort of a small project
Fair housing is an annual requirement.
requirement. That's,
It's not a project, but it's an allocation that we have to make every year.
okay, that, I understand that, okay.
And Mr. Chair, did you say 17,000 for general administration?
Yes.
Okay, I thought I heard 20.
Well, a total of 20, we had
17 plus the
30,
three, yeah.
3,017
Right.
was siphoned off of the 150. Okay, now, and then we also are looking for a $750,000 CDBG neighborhood revitalization out of their funds, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So as we go down then, we end up spending, of the $750,000, we spend $650,000 for street and sidewalk improvements. The $130,000 that's left over from the first grant is also going to be used for street improvements. And then we have come up with another CDBG EDRLF grant for street and sidewalk improvements. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So we're actually going for 3 different grants.
Well, no, essentially we're going, the CDBG,
The revolving,
EDRLF
the other one is the revolving loan fund.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm just trying to get an idea of where all this money's
Okay.
coming
And
from.
that would just be an administrative ask of the state to use what we have in balance.
So we, if we wanted to, we could ask for $250,000 to repair Crawford Street, to do improvements on Crawford Street.
As part of an overall project that meets the criteria for the grant. So the grant has to have eligible activities. We had a minimum.
Well, we're gonna improve the parks. We're gonna do the streets thing. That was 2. I think you listed 5. And I think there's and we improved the street, improved the sidewalks. I think those are 3 things that we would need to do this thing, right? I mean,
Yeah, you
3
have
out of the 5 that we would do.
Yeah, you have to have at least 3, yes.
Okay, and if we just improve the street, improve the sidewalks, we would have, and do the park improvements, we'd have 3.
Correct. One of the things too with the grant, the reason we have the recreational in there as well is because it's the outreach of the lives that you are affecting is looked at by the state of Ohio. So if you're doing simply street repair, you're really only affecting the neighbors that live on both sides of the streets. When you
Right.
throw in the Hurlinger Park and the other items, it has a broader reach, which makes your application much more attractive to the state of
Right,
Ohio.
so yes, I swear, we're including the park and some improvements to Crawford Street, okay. And then we're taking, $250,000 from the, storm water fund, which are, I mean, all this stuff's taxpayer money. I mean, you know my position on that. It's all taxpayer money. About $51,000, a little bit less than $51,000 from the water fund, and then $400,000 from the general fund. And then coming down, the remainder of the 650 was the street and sidewalk improvements. Out of the 750, then we're taking the remaining 100,000 and going to the Parks and Recreation, and then we're adding an additional $60,000 from the Troy Park budget. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm just wondering, I mean, you go back to the MKS state study, they're saying paint the street, and we decide to build a highway.
Mr. Chair, did we
I'm
not?
not, may I finish, please?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, so so my question is, it's not really a question, but my comment is, are we really want to do this? I mean, we could, my own experience is, traveling in and around the east side of Troy, very little traffic, very safe to travel around. Share the road is a 42-foot wide street. My street, where I live, is 34 feet wide, and they have parking on both sides of the street. And I say my curb law is about, maybe 30, 35 feet, or 35 inches. And I don't have a 5-foot sidewalk. I only have a 4-foot sidewalk. I'm jealous of the people that actually live along Crawford Street. You got a bigger street and bigger sidewalks. I mean, anyway, I'm kidding. Anyway, so I'm just wondering whether we really need to do this. And I think we might want to. Can we apply for the grants and then look to redesign this thing with more appropriate funding, or do we have? If we go for the grants, do we have to go with the plan that's outlined?
As stated, we currently are seeking other funds as well to hopefully offset some of the costs to the city with the one-time strategic funds that we've applied to our senator and other representatives.
Yeah, you mentioned that. I heard that. So again, but the question is Ken, if we apply for these grants, we're not assuming that we're going to get them, of course. I understand that as well. But can we do a redesign with a little bit more common sense in this thing going forward, or do we have to? Are we stuck into this plan? I mean, this thing. If we approve the grants, we're set to go on this thing.
We can redesign it if need be.
Okay.
I guess, Mr. Chair, if I can ask a question, I'm not sure, other than the price tag. I mean, it is a long stretch. It is a road that would be repaved. We are using the existing pavement. The concerns about moving to a shared road configuration versus using the rec trail concept like we have on Riverside between Adams Street and Duke Park.
Yeah, and you built one of those out in our neighborhood. I understand that. I know what it is.
Okay. Yeah. Well, the reason, there are several reasons why we would want to do the rec trail off the pavement. It's safer. There's a lot more security for those folks that are not maybe seasoned cyclists such as yourself that may not be as confident being on the road. I mean, we've heard those arguments before, and rightly so. We get that. But we also are able to maintain the two lanes of parking in addition to the two travel lanes. And 42 feet wide gives you adequate, maybe 11 to 12 foot wide driving lanes and slightly smaller parking lanes, which is what you want.
Yeah, I got
so
that.
I'm not sure what other kind of redesign we could do. It's not set in stone like Tim is saying. You know, there may be some tweaks that we can do. We don't have detailed designs done yet, and wouldn't contemplate that unless we got the grant funds. So there probably is some flexibility, but given the fact that we are not talking about going into people's front yards, we are not talking about taking any more right-of-way, buying more right-of-way. We would be accommodating any sidewalk and or rec trail within the area back to back where the sidewalks are right now, and only bringing the rec trail closer to the curb, but between the buffer that we would still have off the road as well as the parking lane, we would still have that safety mechanism, if you will, to provide that complete streets connectivity.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say again, I obviously not an engineer and this type of thing, but again, I would like to see more of the funds focused on improving Hurlinger Park and less funds doing a street project. Okay, I mean that to me is, and if we have to sacrifice the highway down to Hobart Cabinet because we can use some of those funds to improve the park, so be it. I think our priorities, and I would be the first to admit, I think over the years the city has in some cases sort of ignored the east side. I know that we've done a tremendous amount of street paving over there recently and that type of thing, but I would like to focus as much money as possible improving the parks and really looking at what we can do there. I say again, nobody talked about the basketball court. That would be one thing I would look at. There's probably some other, I know we have some people here who want to talk about that tonight, and I know they're all in favor of improving the park, and I appreciate that, and I'm looking forward to hearing from them, but again, I think on a redesign, we ought to be making sure we're focusing the money where it's going to do the best good, and that is essentially in the park. It's taking care of the few bike riders that may use that path to get to the our new river walkway.
And because the street and the park are both two of the three minimum, I think we have 4 priorities, qualifications for this grant, because those 2 are part of the requirements, there's probably some flexibility just depending on how we design and whether we can find some value in the street improvements versus the park improvements, so we'll maximize whatever we can.
Yeah, I think that if we're going to do, again, I'm suggesting we take a real hard look at that, because, again, I think the residents of the east side would appreciate it.
We
Okay?
duly noted. Yeah.
Could I just ask one quick question?
Yes, go ahead.
In my recollection on Crawford Street, there are not complete sidewalks to Herlinger Park, is that correct?
Well, that is
Because
correct.
I know, I took 75 fifth graders to Herlinger Park the other day and would have loved a really wide sidewalk, especially when we got to the part where there was none. So if we could complete those sidewalks, I think that would be a great addition to a connection to the riverfront, and I'm also looking forward to hearing what the residents have to say.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I really appreciate all your help and information. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Pierce, do you have any other comments?
I'm looking forward to the development on the east side as a resident on the east side, and that traffic does increase on Crawford when there's a train going across. So increased safety for children on bicyclists, I would prefer, rather than them have to fight traffic as much. Especially if we're gonna...
That train crosses goes on to Union Street, doesn't it?
Most people turn onto Crawford. They're avoiding the train at that crossing,
Okay.
Yep.
if
I
they haven't
recommend you
used the
go over there,
underpass.
check that out sometime.
Okay. The train went by and I didn't see, I didn't see anything. I didn't pay attention to anything, let's put it that way.
And that's,
Okay.
that's understandable, but because you don't see it as
I don't
much,
see it as much,
like...
right. My bet would be wanting the east side would like to get rid of the trains, but we can't do that. Do we have any comments from other, council people in the audience, please? Okay, do we have people that would like to comment? Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. Mr. Phillips, please.
Tim and Mr. Davis, we're not taking or increasing the width of Crawford Street of the 10-foot pathway and the 5-foot sidewalk, the driving lanes, and the parking. There is no additional area of the easement being taken up for this construction.
That is correct.
It is all the existing measurements.
Correct.
Okay. Are the with the improvements of the parking around the park that you were talking about, is this including curbs around the entire park or anything like that?
It would.
Ken?
It would not require curbs all around the park. It was designed a long time ago,
Right.
so there's not a whole lot of room to work with as far as parking. One thing, as we talked about, the gravel spots, especially to the north, what we talked about was paving that area, and then we would have some sort of parking blocks in that area, not curbs around it, but we would have parking blocks in that area.
As to the basketball court, when I was out there just the other day, there was a lot of firework debris. It's just a point of information, not casting aspersions on anyone. But that basketball court does need extensive work and rehabilitation with that. So that's just a comment. As to the pickleball courts, tentative area of placement?
So actually, it won't help the people at home, but we do have a concept draw up, if I could. Show you the area we have here.
Sure.
So to get your bearings.
Mm-hmm.
We have.
Yeah, I know where you're at there.
Okay, the water tower, the pickleball courts would be back here.
Okay.
This would be the playground, and then this would be the disc golf.
Near the intersection of Crawford Street and Hurlinger Way.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
This makes for great TV. Can you share where,
I'm sorry.
maybe north,
Okay,
east,
did you want to see that?
southwest of?
Yeah, that's all right, we'll figure it
In the
out. You guys will
most
put it
open
right.
area.
So, yeah, I know it's over here, so, okay. Yeah,
Give us-
that'd be fine, because
Give us a
you
general-
want to keep the golf thing away from the water tower, because Miss Aaron throws will be over the fence and inside the, by the water tower, and then you lose your ball like you do on the golf course, right?
That's right, it's penalty.
So,
2 strokes.
So on the north side, which is close to the Crawford Street, Hurlinger Way, we would have, pickleball courts in that area. It's a level area that's, relatively open. And then, where the existing, playground is now, we would have new equipment in there. One, information we heard from the residents was safety of kids playing in that, so we were gonna fence that area in, as well as in with one of the picnic areas, shelters. So we would have that. That would be more along the, I guess, the east side, along Hurlinger Way and South Union Street. And then, the disc golf goes all throughout the court, all throughout the, park.
Great.
And my last comment, as to going back to the pickleball and in contact with Mr. Hinkleman, was it?
Correct.
I am a member of the Miami County Pickleball Group, just recently, and did have a conversation with Paul over that. But at the moment, just for your edification, the pressure is being increased on the parks, the outdoor spaces, because they are not at the Y, because they want to be outdoors. So in the discussions with the park department, perhaps to alleviate some of the pressure on the parks, to encourage that they start or incorporate the use of the Y as they do through the inclement weather time.
Yeah, they have the Y, they also have Lincoln Community Center where they have some courts, in the, gymnasium. That's just part of the
Rotation.
It's a big trend right now.
Well, that's just part of the bigger visionary conversation that the park board will continue to have with the association.
Right.
Because they're good resources, they know the rules, they know how to, run things very well. They do have a set of ground rules that are very commonsensical. But, we have limited courts like just about every community, and so it takes some coordination.
Appreciate that.
Just one other comment, if I may.
Go ahead.
Mr. Davis, I know you mentioned fencing. I understand there would probably need to be fencing around the pickleball courts as there are at Duke Park, but I would just encourage maybe not too much fencing. That's a nice open space for kids to run and play, so I
It's
hope...
a small area of fencing.
Right, okay, thank you.
Mrs. Westfall, please, you're councilperson.
Susan Westfall, 305 Water. I just wanted to know how well the informational meetings were attended, if you felt like you got a good feedback from the people that are going to be affected.
Yeah, we were very pleased with the turnout. We had about 15 to 20. Several of them are here. You can get the firsthand responses from them. So we were very pleased, and I want to thank everyone who did come out and provide their information. As also, we did a survey as well. We collected the survey results from individuals who maybe couldn't attend the meeting. So we were very pleased with the turnout and participation.
Okay, thank you so much. Any other council members? Okay. Now we're ready for the audience. So somebody would like to start that, I would appreciate it. We need you to state your name and address, and we're interested in what you have to hear or have to say. We want to hear what you have to say. How's that sound?
Okay, I'm Blair Jackson, and we have a small business on East Water Street, right in the old Hobart building. And so I drive Crawford Street every day, and plus we have a vested interest in the east side of Troy. And for us, in my small business, we're enthusiastic to see what the development folks are working on. We've attended some of the said meetings, and so the communication's been done. There was ample time for questions and answers, discussion, and so that was much appreciated. But it is the east side of Troy. We also live in Troy. Our residence is back by the YMCA. And but it's nice to see the interest in making things happen on the east side. Also a pickleball player. And the nice thing about the courts that are under discussion is they're in a high-density residential area. You look at Duke Park, excellent facility, but it's not in the core of Troy. So definitely a fan of making that happen. Also on the east side, like the guy that owns my building, Eric Peltier, he's not here. He's working 2 part-time jobs to invest in his building. And that's the old cabinet building that you see on 301 East Water Street. As I mentioned, we've got a business there. So we're trying to make the investment ourselves. And to see what's going on here, it really complements it well.
Okay, good.
And I can't speak to all of the details, and I appreciate you guys dig into that, where the funds are actually going. That's very appropriate. But the big thing that I would like to advocate is the east side. People come into Troy and they comment, this is a wonderful town. Well, there's times when I'm driving with people down Crawford, and I find myself having to make some excuses, you know. So I'm an avid supporter of what these people are trying to do. Thank you.
Appreciate your comment. Anybody else would like to come up, please? Okay. I knew there were some people in the back. I just had to thank you, Mr. Rizal, for encouraging them. Okay.
I'm Becky Gerard. I live at 501 East Franklin Street.
Okay.
I was brought into this by a neighbor. My understanding was the original target group for talking about this grant were the people on both sides of Crawford Street, and then the half street to the east and the half street to the west. My neighbor on the west side of Union Street said, why haven't you come to these meetings? I don't know about them. You didn't get a letter? No, I didn't get a letter. So I didn't get in until the 3rd meeting. I would like to start this with reading you. Are you all familiar with the grant we're talking about?
We've got the information on it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Communities are eligible to apply every year. The Neighborhood Revitalization Program is a comprehensive focus on defined neighborhood target areas. This program requires a minimum of 3 projects. The program is complex, and public participation is imperative in order to identify the needs of the neighborhood. Eligible projects: flood and drainage, street improvements, water and sewer, sidewalks, utilities, senior centers, neighborhood centers, and parks and recreation. National objective is projects must aid low to moderate income persons and have an area-wide benefit. The national objective qualification is according to the 2010 census. A benefit area must have 51% or higher low to moderate income, blah, 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 blah. So that's what it is. It's got a wide variety of uses. I think if you went to the people in southeast Troy neighborhood and said, we're going to give you $750,000 for improvements in your neighborhood, what do you think is the most vital thing that needs to be done? The most vital thing that we've talked about is what's going to happen when Forest School goes. We have more children in our neighborhood than we've had in the 20-some years that I've lived there. They utilize that playground almost year-round, and it's going to be gone.
If I may, Forest is going to continue to be used for special programs. It will not be one of the school facilities
So the
that's
kids
taken
will
down.
have that?
It won't be a school with
Children.
students
Right.
in it, except for students in special programs, but they will be utilizing that
So the kids
playground,
in the
and it is a
neighborhood still
public
have access
playground.
to that?
Yes.
Yes.
That's what people were asking me. Okay, so,
And that, by the way, has nothing to do with the city.
Right.
well, I know that's the school's property.
Yeah, school property.
But we
Okay.
were
But it is
saying,
public.
with that kind of money, we would approach the city and the parks and say, what can be done for the city? When this was brought to my attention, people were confused and didn't understand what was going on. And there are some questions that still have not been answered. We were basically left with the sidewalk to nowhere and the park. And the park, when we talked about it amongst ourselves in the citizenry, Sinistry was that that park is not adequate for children junior high age and younger. My neighbor took her young children there at one time, and she said they were covered with excrement by the time I got them back to the car. She said, that is not a park we will go to. For younger children, it is location and safety. The location you can't do anything about, but it is at the far edge of our neighborhood. There are very few children in that area, and as far as safety, for that age group of children, you're at when you come off 25A, the first stop sign is up at Dad's. There is no other stop there. The only stop sign between Market and Union is right there at West Street. One mother said, oh, that's great for snatch and grab. If you've got younger kids there, the ones that go to Forest School now to play, they are vulnerable there. There are not eyes on them except for those houses on Hurlinger Way. They've got the railroad tracks, which, you know, I don't think that you can keep junior high kids off the tracks if they want to get excited. And there are too many trains that go through there. You've got the industrial building on the south side, you've got the parking lot across the way, and then you've got those few houses. Traffic is bad. There's not even a full curb on Union Street in front of that park. It doesn't have fencing. It shouldn't have fencing or all the way around it, but that is what keeps the kids inside the playground where Forest School is, when they play kickball, when they play soccer, whatever. So that park is not good for those children. As far as younger children, I guess you could do the playground. When we went back to the development committee on the park issue, the people there are trying to work with the city. Most of them are aware of the long-term plan, the development downtown, and we understand what the purpose is of the bike path. And they let us know, yes, it's going to go here, it's going to go to the east side of the Cabinet Building, and it's going to go over to the levee. Fine. But some of the questions they didn't answer for us were, what's the liability? Who's got the liability on the bike path that runs right into the sidewalk that they are liable for as homeowners? Okay? We talked about snow removal because there's liability there. And they said, well, okay, the city will take care of the bike path. So what does that do to the people who have the sidewalk? Are they supposed to go out and shovel all their stuff, or we can have a combined effort here? But who has the liability? Are the bike paths going to allow EV bikes or the electric skateboards or whatever that go faster? Because that increases your liability as far as accidents. I went out there and measured. I don't know how this is going to work physically. There's a house at the corner of Race and Crawford on the west side. 5 feet across the grass. I don't think there's a curb there. 5 feet across the sidewalk. 38 inches to the porch of that house. Most of those homes are very, very close. So I don't understand how they can get a grass area for the curb, a 5-foot sidewalk, and that 5-foot bike path without going into the property owner's property or out into the street. We're still confused about things. It's not really clear.
Can I intercede here
Yes,
just a
sir.
minute? Okay. My understanding from our discussions is that Mr. Davis said that they are going to work within the parameters between the side, the edge of the sidewalk facing the house.
Mm-hmm.
From there, all the way across the street to the edge of the sidewalk facing the house on the west side. So you start the house on the east side, you got the edge of the closest edge of the sidewalk, and then the new construction will go all the way over to on the west side to the edge of the sidewalk closest to the houses on the west side of the street. So there's not going to be any additional infringement towards the house on either side. They're going to get it all done between, the distance between the two edges of the sidewalk as it currently exists. Is that pretty close? That's correct. Okay.
Okay.
So
Sounds good.
we have to trust our engineering department on that.
Like I said, there are things that weren't made clear, so we're still waiting for an answer on who's liable for that. Is it gonna be part of their homeowner's insurance, or as their sidewalk is, or whatever? When it came to the park, we did say, when we talked about it, and we decided that it would not function well for younger children, and we were led to, well, there was a limited budget for the park. We said, what would do well for the park? Because the park needs attention. The park needs to be vital. It needs more energy. And actually, kudos to Jeremy Drake, because pickleball was one of the things that we were going to suggest. You know, I go to the Y, I know the demand. I didn't know about leagues so much, but I knew there was problems out at Duke Park with people saying we don't get access, so on and so forth. And, you know, two pickleball courts can go in the space of a tennis court. So that was pretty cool. We didn't know how many they could afford, but we suggested rather than update the kids' park, if they were limited on money, put it into that, because the kids don't need to go. Like I said, it's not safe, it's not contained. These are kids, the younger kids who don't need to be drawn there. They don't have cell phones. If somebody gets hurt, if somebody gets snatched, they don't have access to somebody to respond, you know, if somebody goes out in the street. So we're saying, what demographic do we want to use that? The only time that we've actually seen a lot of use in that park is the basketball court. Basically, that's it.
Okay.
So we suggested the pickleball course because that would draw not from just our neighborhood, but the people up West Street on that side of town. They are popular. If they had lighting, which they plan to put in, those, if they keep it up until 10 o'clock, there will be people there all the time. It will be a destination on our side of town. And the Frisbee golf thing was, you know, stellar. We're all for that. As far as having a place for the neighborhood, it's great. They did a nice job there. Yeah. As far as the bike path, like I said, the neighbors that we've talked to don't really want it, but they understand that it's part of what you guys want for the city. They're willing to go ahead and give it a shot, putting their faith in you guys. But we do want an answer on who's liable for what. But yes, they are not happy, but they are willing to go with what the city wants, because we may be marginalized financially, but we're still citizens, and we still appreciate what you guys are trying to do.
Okay.
Right. Any questions?
No. Thank you very much for your comments. We appreciate it.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Terry.
Just to address a couple of the comments. First of all, got the message on the basketball. I'll talk to Jeremy about, you know, where it is on our capital plan and what we might be able to do. As far as the liability, I know our law director is in the back of the room, but he did answer the question for us, and that is, it's, you know, the sidewalks are the sidewalks. It's, anybody's going to have the typical liability that you might have with sidewalks. When it comes to the recreational trail, I'd remind the council that probably within the last couple of months, we updated the rec trail ordinances and regulations. So this would be recognized as a rec trail. It would be maintained and plowed and, you know, just cleaned when necessary, similar to what we do with the rest of our rec trails, including Riverside. As far as any additional kind of liability, particularly related to electric bikes or any other allowable vehicles, if you will, on the rec trail, there would be recreational immunity in that case. So the liability would not be on the property owner unless there was some act of negligence that, you know, if somebody left something in the middle, but that's anybody, you know, that's, I won't say typical liability, but that's not out of the norm liability. But otherwise, the rec trail is just different and distinct from a regular sidewalk. Again, similar to Riverside, and with recreational immunity under the ordinances, particularly given that we do allow some of the lower speed electric boosted bikes and scooters, and you have it, whatever they're called now, they do have that, liability protection.
That's great.
The other thing I would say related to, basically a broader, conversation in the future, beyond just, repairing the basketball courts, is that, as part of our continued outreach for additional grant funds, one of the items that we know, eventually would be needed there would be restrooms, facilities. I will, in all honesty, say that we attempted with the park, superintendent to have some, portable, facilities out there. Unfortunately, it was continually vandalized, so we're continuing to try to grow the more organized participation at that park, so that we have some on-site supervision and self-governance, if you will. And knowing that permanent restrooms are in the range of probably around $200,000+ to install lately. We would continue to look at other grant funds, as well as any utility infrastructure improvements that would have to be made, water, sewer, et cetera, to support permanent restrooms. So we would continue to look at ways to invest in that park beyond what this grant would afford us.
Okay. Thank you. Please state your name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Darlene Boer, 240 South Crawford. I'm excited about the parks being redone and everything, and improving the safety in our area, and getting some new sidewalks where there's no sidewalks, and improving the curbs and everything. You said something about a 10-foot bike path, and then there's going to be 5 foot of grass area. Is that correct? Yeah. I didn't know about the grass area, because where I live, from the existing sidewalks, I put sidewalks in 2.5 years ago. My sidewalk's 5 foot, and it's 5.5 foot out to the curb, which is grassy area now. So where are you going to get the extra 5
So
foot?
it falls in the existing right-of-way, so they have broken it down. It's kind of hard to see, but I can email this to you. It's in the council packet. It breaks down the different lanes. So the lane is 20, and then as you go out from there, you get the extra. So
you're going to cut down on the actual drive?
So it all stays the same, but yeah, there'll be a little bit taken from the roadway, but there'll be 2 lanes. Yep, 2 lanes there.
Because it's only 10.5 from my existing sidewalk out to where there's no curb right now.
Yeah, we save a foot by taking 10.5 to the
That was one of my questions, so that's all I have.
Okay, thank you so much.
I'm excited about the park getting redone. That'd be awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Thank you for all of your contributions and comments. We really appreciate them all. Any other questions from our committee tonight?
I do have one, and I don't think it's been mentioned, but the deadline to apply is June 12th.
Right. And when did we know about that deadline?
We've known about the deadline. It's getting the required notices out and having the required public hearings. So many times we don't have enough time, but we've been working on this for quite a while. This hasn't just crept up on us.
Okay.
It's kind of like some ODOT projects that we have where you've got the deadline and it's a quick deadline.
And I just want to add, we just got the forms, the application forms in May 13th, and the next agenda item is a result of that. So they changed the forms and stuff, and we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves until we actually see the forms and what we're required to submit.
Okay, thank you very much.
We have a historical marker out there for the Canteen Girls, just making sure that that's going to stay in place as well.
We will keep it in place.
Thank you.
Staff, right? That's right. Getting head nods all around.
Okay. What's our druthers on this?
Move forward as staff has recommended with emergency.
I think we can move forward. I'd like to see a redesign if possible on that. Okay, Lynn?
Yes, move forward.
Okay. Our next item is provide a recommendation to council regarding approval of the Anti-Displacement Relocation Assistance Plan requested by the Ohio Department of Development. As this document is part of the PY 2024 CDBG grant application, which is due June 12th. Consideration of emergency legislation is requested. And I'm assuming the other one was emergency as well, right? The grant we just talked about, all this.
That was right. That's what I had asked about.
Okay.
June 12th is.
We got to have it for everything on this one.
And the
Okay.
one before.
So I would like to amend, I think we need to go ahead, the first part with, as a, emergency.
I think.
We said that.
Okay, I didn't catch that, I apologize. Okay, so how are we doing on this, number 2
All
here?
right, so this, council originally adopted this, plan, anti-displacement and relocation assistance plan back in 1994. And we had no requirement to update that. However, as Nikki mentioned, the ODOD and the CDBG program, I say that quickly because I say it in my sleep. Their new requirement is that they want council to re-bless that every 5 years.
Okay.
And so as part of this application process, we're requesting, we need to get that updated by council to be included in the packet.
Great. Any council comments on that? Mr. Phillips? Okay, what do we like to do on that?
Move forward with emergency.
Move forward with emergency?
Yes.
Okay. Number 3, provide a recommendation to council regarding the recommendation of the Troy Planning Commission that council accept the final plat of Fox Harbor Section 10 and the dedication of right-of-way. Plat is located west of the Kings Chapel neighborhood, just south of West Main Street.
Planning Commission made a positive recommendation back at the end of March. We did not, I believe we sent you an email just to let you know that at some point it would come to you, but we were not putting it on the agenda until we got the final escrow agreement in place. That has now been finalized, and so this is the last step of getting Section 10 approved. Just as a reminder, Section 10 is 11.5 acres, 27 building lots. This is Fox Harbor subdivision west of Kings Chapel.
Right.
And we are not asking for emergency legislation.
Okay. Committee comments on
Do you
that?
have any questions?
Mr. Pierce?
No.
Any council members? Anything from the audience? What's our druthers on that?
Move forward.
Move forward, I think we can do that. Move forward, we do not need emergency on that.
Correct.
Okay, number 4, provide a recommendation to council regarding the annexation petition filed for 107.559 acres from Concord Township, the ELC LLC and Poor Annexation, located on the west side of Wilson Road. A statement of municipal services to be provided to the area proposed for annexation, statement of buffering related to incompatible uses, and acceptance, as the city is required to provide the above to the county within 20 days of the filing of the annexation with the county, which is dated May 21st, 2024. Consideration of emergency legislation is requested. Do we have any comments from committee on that?
I do not.
Mr. Pierce?
Does staff have anything they want to add to this?
It's a Type 2 expedited annexation, which is why the timelines are pretty tight. You have a map. You have a couple of maps, but you have an aerial that shows the area that we're talking about to give you some reference points. And again, we are asking for that we would require emergency to meet the deadlines.
Okay.
Thank you.
Comments from other council people? Mr. Whidden, please come to the microphone. State your name and your known address at this time.
Jeffrey Whidden, 1329 Vicksburg Court. We're going to be accepting fees in lieu of for this.
This is an annexation petition, so we don't have any kind of discussion at the park board at this point.
Did I read that wrong in the packet?
It's annexation.
Yeah, there's no plans coming with this. It's just that we're just getting the land in the city.
The Fox Harbor one was prior.
I'll withdraw my question.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, any other comments from the audience? What are our druthers on this?
Move forward, staff.
Move forward with emergency?
Move forward, emergency.
Is there anything else before our committee tonight?
No, sir.
Okay, I think we're adjourned.